Welcome to Loop City. We're five guys who love hoops, entertainment, and culture. I'm Pete Toal. Joining me, as always, is Gonzostar, Mike Skills, and Coach Matt. In this episode, we are covering the plethora of injuries that happened last night in the NBA, unfortunately, for some of the key teams. We're also talking about our top surprise players as we've hit the 1 month mark of the NBA season. We're each going to cover three players that have surprised us in a good way. But I wanted to first jump into the NBA injuries. John Morant, sprained ankle, one of the so-called nastiest sprained ankles people have seen in a while. Looks like he's probably going to miss 8 games. Desmond Bane is already out with the toe injury. He's already been out a week. He's out for like another 2 weeks. Anybody that wants to chime in, how do you guys feel like this is going to affect Memphis in the next couple of weeks?
I would say they're going to probably drop a little bit in the standings because you're without Ja. You have no Desmond Bane. Jaren Jackson Jr. is probably going to be, as you said right before we went live, Pete, he'll be out for rest. So you're not going to have him every game because he's just coming off of his injury. It's going to be tough. They're going to be relying on, I believe Tyus Jones they've got. You're going to be relying on guys like that, and what are they now? 9-5.
Yeah, I mean and then looking at it too, like Jake LaRavia, David Roddy, like those guys are going to have to play even bigger roles than their rookies, too. That's tough, because Memphis, like if you're down like 4 or 5 games, if you lose those 4 or 5 games, say in the next couple games, you could be really trying to make up ground heavily in a competitive Western Conference, and you could be stuck in that 6, 7, 8 seed for most of the season, losing that ground that you already kind of have. So it's tough.
And we know they did well without Ja last year, but they also had Desmond Bane healthy at the same time.
Right.
And you had Slow-Mo, too, who's now with Minnesota.
And what troubles me, Dylan Brooks does not have a good shot selection. He has he takes my shot selection in the rec center on 2K whenever it's a serious game on the line. Hey, I got Matt. I hit Matt. Matt, that was funny enough. Matt had to go off camera on that one because he knows it's true. That's the shot selection. It's troublesome at times. But, yeah, it's crazy. Next injury, Kate Cunningham, stress fracture of his tibia. Looks like based on in street clothes, the Twitter handle, I forgot it's Jeff. I forgot his last name. He basically does all the NBA injuries, kind of puts a timeline on it for most players. It's pretty much the most accurate. He says that based on the time frame, it's about a 60-game injury for the most part, except for Rodney McGruder was able to come back earlier. That's tough for Detroit because now you've got Killian Hayes and Jaden Ivey in the backcourt. Yes, it helps Ivey, and maybe Killian Hayes can kind of come around, but he's not a shooter. He's not really that great offensively at all. So we're looking at the Wembanyama sweepstakes, I think. Any of you guys have anything on Kate Cunningham?
It's like I told you earlier, Pete, this is a blessing in disguise for Detroit. Now you have a legitimate shot at getting Wembanyama, maybe even a Scoot Henderson if you somehow get the second pick, But also, now you can really develop Jaden Ivey in that backcourt. And, we know they're going with Bagley at the 5. Probably they want to get him some value, move him. But also, I think Duran's going to get a shot now. And that would be a great thing for them to develop those 2 young guys.
Yeah. I don't know. Detroit, they're trying to figure it out. Like, it was so bad at one point for Sadiq Bey that he got benched for them to start Isaiah Stewart and Bagley as the front court. Then looking at it, Isaiah Stewart gets hurt. Bey comes in the second half, starts it, and he just hasn't looked great at all. Like, there's not a lot to look forward to as a Pistons fan with them out. Like, it's just, or with Cunningham out, because Jaden Ivey, now they're just going to double team because you can't really get anything out of Killian Hayes, so they can kind of play off of him and then wait for Jaden Ivey to try to drive and stop him there, force him to kind of make a play, which he's not accustomed to technically being a point guard with the ball in his hands a ton. So we'll see what happens with Detroit going forward, but it doesn't look good. Last major injury, because I will say Tyrese Halliburton got hurt as well, but it looks like he's going to be able to play in the next Indiana Pacers game, so I didn't include him on this list. But I did include Tyrese Maxey of the Philadelphia 76ers. He has the sore foot. He's out 3 to 4 weeks. Usually what I've seen based on some doctors commenting on Twitter, basically that 3 to 4 week time frame is an evaluation time frame, and then they can figure out if it's like another week to ramp up. So we might be looking at a 4 to 5 week time frame, and there's already an injury to James Harden. So now that backcourt is going to be Shake Milton along with DeAnthony Melton. And I'm going to go ahead and chime in myself as a Sixers fan. We know Doc Rivers' affinity for the sorry bench lineups. And
George's Yang.
Yeah, George's Niang. Like, we're going to see a lot of, like, Furkan Korkmaz. Like, man, it's going to be a rough patch because we know what's going to happen. Joel Embiid's going to take it all on himself like he always does. He's going to get overloaded, and then he's going to get so worn down, he's going to be susceptible to an injury, and that's what I'm most worried about. Because if Embiid goes down, you might as well just say the season's over. And that's what I'm worried about. They're overloading him. What do you guys think of Maxey? How does that affect things?
It gives Tobias Harris a shot to be the number 2 guy. Clippers Tobias Harris. Can he do it?
I don't drink, but, man, if I did, I don't know. Man,
I bet nobody had that on their bingo card this year that Tobias Harris would be the number 2 option at some point for the Sixers.
Nah, man, I don't know. And then couple that with how PJ Tucker's been ineffective. Man, it's just not looking great for
Doc Rivers gets to show his coaching chops now.
Oh, okay. You're trying to bait me into flaming that man. Don't do that. I've flamed him enough on here. I'm not going to waste my time flaming him anymore. Let's get into our surprises of the season. Like I said, we're going to do 3 surprises for each person. I'm going to go to you, Matt. Who do you have as your first surprise?
So the first one I'm going to go with this evening, and it's a guy I've always been a fan of since he came out of Duke. I'm going with Cam Reddish. And I think one of the biggest things, early in the season, he wasn't playing much. Tom Thibodeau, we know how Thibs can be with his lineups. But even now, if you would have told me, well, Thibs is going to put him in the starting lineup, he's going to start to get the big minutes, my thing would be, well, shoot, is his psyche going to be bad? He's been absolutely fantastic in these last 4 games. He's getting these minutes. He's had games of 26, 19, 10, and 11, and he's shooting it over 50% from the field, about 35, 36 from 3. He's making his free throws. The defense has been outstanding. And on the season, I know the numbers don't pop out, the 9.3 points, the 1.9 rebounds, the assist. But the defense, the numbers have gone up when you actually put this guy in the lineup and you're using him. And I didn't know if we would see that this year. I'm glad we are because I'm a big fan of Cam Reddish.
What's interesting with Reddish is Barrett's kind of switching over to the 2, and it's not getting any better for Barrett. So it's kind of like the reverse of Duke where – like Reddish struggled heavily, and then Barrett was, kind of thriving, and then you had, Zion, obviously. But, like, now with the NBA, it's like I don't know how you get Barrett going along with Reddish at the same time. You can get Jalen Brunson going. Like, it seems like the Knicks can't figure out how to get everybody at the same time on the same page. It's like your turn, my turn, where, like, 1 or 2 guys will do well and the rest struggle. So I'm happy.
And then you got
Reddish, but...
and then you've got some guys on the bench who are going to come in, and you got to get them going. Obi Toppin, Emmanuel Quigley. Mm-hmm. So it's tough, especially when you have a ball dominant guy like a Julius Randle. Jalen Brunson needs the ball in his hands to be effective. He can play a little bit off the ball. We saw it in Dallas with Luka Doncic. Maybe that's kind of the answer if you want to get R.J. Barrett going a little, put the ball in his hands a little more. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. I like that. But the only knock I have for Reddish is whenever he gets going and he gets a rhythm, he gets hurt. It seems like every time it's like a nagging injury. That man can't just ever stay healthy Like he got, what did he have? A hamstring last night. So it's
It's the
just
Duke.
like,
It's the Duke curse.
I mean, I guess, but it
Think
just seems
about
like,
it.
Yeah, I
You're either
guess.
a bust or you get injured a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
Marvin Bagley, Kyrie, Zion, Cam Reddish. The list goes on and on.
mm-hmm. Gonzo, I'm going to go to you second on this one. Who do you got as your first surprise?
My first surprise is Kristaps Porzingis. Porzingis is averaging 20.9 points a game, almost 21 points a game, 8.8 rebounds, 2.7 assists, 48% from field goals, almost 39 from three, and almost 80 from the line. And check this out. He's only averaging 1.7 turnovers a game.
Nice.
And they're number seven in the Eastern Conference. I told you guys watch out for those Wizards.
Would you say he's been their best player?
Well, no, I'm not gonna say he's been his best player. I think Bradley Beal is still their best player.
No. Do you think Porzingis has been their best player this season?
No, I think Bradley Beal has been, and in some spurts, it has been another one of my surprise people, which we'll get to later. But I'm impressed with how many people in this lineup are averaging the amount of points they are, shooting good percentages, and the turnover numbers are low. And I think it's a credit to the coaching staff, also to the players. And I predicted them to make the playoffs anyway. And when we doing the previews, I predicted them to make it. I knew that they had enough talent on this team. Rui Hachimura, you got Daniel Gafford, you got Monte Morris.
They got Kispert back.
Yeah, Kispert's playing well for them.
Back. You got Will Barton. I mean, like I said, Kristaps, Kyle Kuzma. I mean, like, they have a lot of talent on this roster. I'm impressed with what they're doing.
Yeah, definitely. They've been a surprise for sure. And they did a lot of that with Beal out for a little bit too. So they kind of weathered that storm where it was like a lot of people chimed in. Of course, it's Twitter, so you never know what you're going to get. But with Beal, they chimed in, is it time to trade Beal? And it's like, have you seen that contract? What team's taking that on? Like, that's not realistic, to be honest. But Mike Skill is going to go to you. Who do you got as your surprise?
My surprise is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's got a career high 32 points per game, up from 24.5 last year, and a career average of 18. And not to mention, he's averaging 6 assists, five rebounds, which is pretty on par for his career average. But he's also having career highs in steals and blocks. And he's a 50-40-90 guy. I was looking at the percentages and I was like, wow. He's lighting it up from 3. He's lighting it up from 2. And he's consistent from the line. And OKC is 7-9. When Chet Holmgren went down, I mean, we didn't think they were going to be a big winner this season anyway. Like, let's just get that out of the way. But when Chet Holmgren went down, we were like, oh, yeah, it's definitely take for Wembanyama. And he's kind of going out there like, yo, I'm tired of sucking. I'm tired of this team being a laughingstock. And he's stepping up his game. And, 32 points a game from 25 last year, that's a huge jump. And he's had several 30-point games to the point where the other night against Boston, they were doubling him. Like, they were giving him, that's some respect right there. That's some KD, Giannis respect right there. So he's having an excellent season. Why? I bet the Clippers wish they hadn't given him up.
Hey, they get Paul George. Maybe they're happy with that.
Or as Skip Bayless says, George Paul, right?
Wow.
The thing with Gilgeous-Alexander, I've noticed from watching the Thunder, he gets in the mid-range a good bit, so he's not just settling for threes. Mm-hmm. And what I'm more impressed about is he gets to the free throw line as well. So he's able to make contact and make that shot, whereas last year he was a little bit hesitant. He started to show flashes of it, but come on now, we all know they did the let's rest for a higher draft pick, so he got pulled early. But overall, him and Giddey are definitely like a dynamic backcourt because Giddey can pass the ball. Obviously, SGA can pass it, so they can split ball handling duties. and really help there. For my first surprise, I am sticking with OKC, and it's Aleksej Pokusevski is my pick because I've never been really high on Poku, but this year he's just been a different player. He started 10 out of 14 games for them. Has really shown flashes on both sides of the ball. He's averaging only 10 points a game, but he's shooting 42% from three, which is really good. And he was at 50%, but the last game he went out with injury. He struggled kind of shooting it early, so he's down to 49%. But he's doing really well. But more impressively is the defensive side of the ball with everything, because with him at the rim in the 14 games that he's played, he's got 16 blocks at the rim already this year. And you might say, well, okay, big deal. But last year, combined in 61 games, he had a total of 17 blocks. So his willingness to kind of be the hub at center to kind of anchor that defense and then not be the offensive anchor on the offensive end like he was trying to force last year has been the biggest difference. He's just running the floor, letting Giddey and SGA kind of get him the ball, whereas last year he was trying to bring it up and do things on his own. He's mobile at 7 foot, and now he's developed the ability to step into the three-point shot and shoot it, which has been a lot more effective. And I think that's been a big difference as well to OKC. They're just kind of playing team dynamic basketball, which has really helped things overall for sure. But I'm going to go back to you, Mike, for your second surprise of the season.
My second surprise of the season is a former Chicago Bull and Cleveland Cavalier, Lauri Markkanen, averaging 22 on the season and 8 rebounds. He's had 6 double-doubles. And Utah, another surprising team that we thought would be tanking for sure, is 11-6 and second in the West. He was averaging 14 points a game last season. That's a huge leap. He's getting better shots. He's getting good shots. And in the end of the game, he's closing. He's hit a lot of key jumpers to ice games down the stretch. And, 8 rebounds is no slouch. There's a lot of guys in the league that should have 8 rebounds by halftime, and they just don't get rebounds. So the fact that he's being active in scoring and on the rebound, that's everything. And I love those new Jazz uniforms. Like, I got to admit, those are the freshest uniforms I've seen in a while. They're really bold. You
mean like the yellow and the black?
Yeah, the black with the yellow. That's bold,
one of
man.
The few that has liked them.
I like the throwback one they got.
Oh yeah, from when they were in the finals. Yeah, those are cool. I was never big on those.
Beautiful.
I understand, Mike. I understand because they played against the Bulls at that time. So.
Well, no, I was never a fan of the jersey itself. Oh. Like I thought the mountains was so random. I was just like I get it's in the Rocky Mountains. I get that part, but it was like, really, y'all putting that on a jersey for real? Like
for some perspective on what Mike said about the rebounding, Zion, who we think could be a guy get 10, 11, he gets 6 a game.
Yeah.
Right. I think, nobody had the Jazz doing anything.
Yeah.
And if you say you did, you're a liar.
Oh, no, absolutely. And Lauri scoring is up because he didn't get as many touches last year in Cleveland. Cleveland had a stacked team and had balanced scoring, so he didn't get a lot. Now he's kind of the focal point out there, and he's kind of like guys have kind of read the scouting report. They're not really worried about him as much, so a lot of time he's getting good looks. And it's like, don't y'all know this dude? Haven't you seen his movies?
And what's crazy is Will Hardy has this team competing on both sides of the ball. Kudos to him because he's even getting Colin Sexton to compete on the defensive end, which, coming off the bench as a 6-man, he's not just scoring. He's out there at least being an average defender, which I give full credit to. But I really enjoy watching the Jazz, which I did not think that was going to be the case coming into the season.
Nobody thought that.
Right. All right, Gonzo, I'm going to you. Well, who is your second surprise?
My second surprise, also a Washington Wizard, Kyle Kuzma. 18.5 points a game, 8.1 rebounds, 3.3 assists, 45% from field goals, 31 from 3, 72 from the line, 2.7 turnovers, low turnovers. To be taking that amount of shots, he's only getting 2.7 turnovers. He's shooting 45%. Another key player in this Washington Wizards wheel to the playoff run.
Yeah, I think with Kuzma, man, he got killed so much. Like when he was with the Lakers, like I think coming into Washington, he had to build his confidence up, and it took a little bit. But he's a perfect complement with Porzingis on the offensive end. Defensively, even Kuzma's starting to guard a little bit, which has been good to see. Pretty much everybody on Washington's been able to step up. You know, the only troubling sign they've had is Johnny Davis being a rookie that struggled early. But they're at the same time, that'll come because he's shown some flashes in the G League after he's gotten comfortable. So it might have just been a rhythm thing, trying to get used to the speed. But Washington really doesn't have like many deficiencies. I still think eventually they'll have to upgrade that point guard spot because I really think Monte Morris is more of a backup than a full-fledged starter. But, you know, they'll be okay. Like, they'll be right there. At minimum, be right there in the play-in, I think, which is a good thing. And Kuzma's right at the forefront of that. So, definitely. Matt, who do you got as your surprise?
So my second guy, a guy we both really like, Pete, and I think Mike is now a fan of, Trey Murphy III.
Yep.
You know, 11 points, almost 4.5 rebounds, the 1.3 assists. We know what he does defensively coming out of Virginia, but he's just been that solid guy off the bench for them when they're healthy. Obviously, Ingram was out. He jumped into the lineup. Zion's missed the last 3 games. He's been in the lineup. But, I mean, on the season, he's shooting at 48% from the field, 43 from 3. He's 95.5 at the line. He's just a solid guy that you want in your rotation. And I think he's the kind of guy, like, he could probably do a lot more if his role were even bigger. But, you know, he's sacrificing. He takes the shots when they're there. I really think he's really helping this team, you know. And dare I say, I think he's better than Herbert Jones. Ooh. I know that may be blasphemy in some ways. He's a far superior offensive player to Herbert Jones. There's no question about that. And he's not that far off defensively. Herbert, you know, Trey Murphy III is a really good defensive player. And what I like, he's starting to take the ball to the basket. And I forgot, I think Mike had texted me. He's like, and I think we were on the 2K or the Call of Duty. Did you just see that dunk by Trey Murphy? He's putting it on the floor. He's going to the rack strong. He's finally using his length and athleticism.
Yeah, I mean, he's right there in the conversation, you know, 6th man of the year. I think there's a couple better candidates, but at least he's right there. Staying aggressive and shooting the 3 is what he needs to do. As long as he can do that, they'll be fine. More so, obviously, with the Pelicans, that they'll have to get more out of Zion when he comes back, defensive effort. And just staying engaged on that side of the ball. But now that C.J. McCollum's kind of got back into rhythm, you know, they'll be okay. Like, it's just hard to make up games in the West, though. So, like, you know, yes, it's early in the season, but, you know, the Pelicans just need full strength, like health at this point. Like, that's their only knock, I think. But they'll be okay. My surprise, I've got Devin Vassell of the San Antonio Spurs. He's really made a jump this season. He went from last season averaging 12 points a game to now averaging 20 a game. He went from shooting 36% from 3 to 42%. He was 43% field goal percentage last year. He's now 47%. And then even more impressive is his ability to defend. He also is able to get more off-ball movement, which he's always been a good player, like as far as like on the floor and stuff like that. But now that he can play off the ball, he's able to move and make cuts, make simple reads that can kind of get him the ball in better spots to score. He already had an endless motor, so to speak. And then now adding in his ability off the ball, he also has played backup point guard in a lot of games, because we know the Josh Primo stuff. He was supposed to be their de facto backup point guard behind Trey Jones. They now use Devin Vassell or Josh Richardson kind of in that role to play a little bit. But, man, he definitely is like the wild card to help them. They were winning early, and then they had to hit the panic button of like, whoa, we're winning too fast. We ain't going to get Wembanyama. So we gotta,
that explains some of the games of Vassell sitting.
Yeah, so we gotta dial it back. But he's been really impressive as one of the young guys pushing forward. So really happy with his play for sure. But
so Pete, are we going to start seeing ankle injuries and hamstrings and rest?
Yeah, you'll see Trey Jones maybe miss some games. You'll see Jakob Poeltl maybe get moved during the season, like things like that, because they're going to want to play the young guys and just push
Keldon Johnson may be out with a headache one game.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I don't know. The Spurs definitely, like, I'd be surprised if they were competitive. If they weren't already down, negative 15 games by the time we get to the All-Star break, at this point. But, we'll have to see. All right, Gonzo, who's your last one that you got as your surprise?
My last one plays for the Orlando Magic and goes by the name of Franz Wagner. 18.7 points a game, which I find to be very impressive due to the fact that you now have Bol Bol emerging, Paolo Banchero, you got Jalen Suggs, you got a bunch of guys in this team, Wendell Carter Jr., you got a bunch of guys who kind of need the ball. But his points went up. His field goal percentage also went up. He's now shooting 49%, 86% from the line, 4.6 assists, 4 rebounds. But another impressive stat that I've noticed about the 3 people I've chose tonight is that all of them average under 3 turnovers. For guys averaging this amount, those turnovers are very low. I'm loving that. Look out for the Orlando Magic. I made a joke about there will be no Magic in Orlando this year. I don't know. It might be some twinkle, twinkle, or somebody's wishing upon a star because something is happening in Orlando.
Nice. I'm actually going to go next because I'm staying with the Orlando Magic. And Bol Bol, you mentioned him. I'm going with him. Nobody saw this version of Bol Bol. Just tonight, as we're live recording this, he's got 20 points, 9 rebounds, and 2 blocks in 27 minutes right now. 8 of 14 from the floor, 2 of 3 from 3. On the season, he's averaging 13 points, 8 rebounds to go with 2 blocks. And that's in 25 minutes a game, and he started 11 out of 16 games. Now, obviously, Paolo Banchero's been out for a good bit, so he kind of had an increased role, but he's definitely emerging as a centerpiece that can block shots, kind of cover the rim a little bit. And he's not settling for threes because he knows he's playing under Mike Malone and he's going to get pulled out of the game in Denver. So he's just jacking threes. Nah, I don't care. I'm not sticking with the game plan. I'm going to do what I want to get points. No, he's playing great under Jamal Mosley. Has really been effective. Like Jalen Suggs, Wagner, as you mentioned, Gonzo, and Bol Bol have really been the pieces that have kept this team going. Now, their record doesn't look great, but I think that they have emerging pieces moving forward that they can really build upon. If we ever get Jonathan Isaac back healthy on the floor, just from a defensive standpoint, I think they're going to be really scary across the board. Mike Skills, I'm going to go to you next. Who's your last surprise? You're on mute, Mike.
My big surprise is the big man for the Clippers, Ivica Zubac. Zubac is basically a walking double-double. He's averaging 10 points and 11 rebounds. He's had over 6 double-doubles and also 6 games of over 15 rebounds. So his career previously were 8 and 6, so that's huge progress. The one point that I've noticed is they've been including him in the offense, kind of like, get the big man going so he protects the paint and runs the floor and whatnot. And he seems to be responding well with it. The one thing I will say is that his career free throw percentage is 75, and he's shooting 65 right now. He's really struggling at the line. He's getting beat up a lot, so no excuses on that. But that's just an area he has to tighten up. Like 6 games of 15 rebounds or more. Like, dude is a beast, and I've watched a lot of Clippers games. I've been to a couple. I'm going to be going to more this season, and he really steps out, especially when they got rid of Hartenstein. They don't really have a backup like that anymore. So, that's my guy.
Yeah, Robert Covington's been playing those backup minutes like as a small ball center.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. We'll see what happens. The more so with the Clippers, I think it's going to be what happens with Kawhi and how they navigate all of that, because it's like he's back, then he's resting again, then he's back again.
Well, he came back the other night against the Pistons and started. Yeah. And the one thing I will say is that even though he looks rusty and out of conditioning, his legs look good. So that bodes well.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, we'll see. The Clippers, I always chalked up, even from when we did the preview podcast, of like they're going to be an end of season. What do they look like when we get towards the playoffs? Because that's going to be the biggest difference. I'm not worried about right now. I want to know, is Paul George going to show up when it matters? Is Kawhi Leonard going to be healthy? What role player is going to step up and all that kind of stuff? But, all right, Matt, close us out with your last surprise.
All right, we're going with a Dallas Maverick. And no, it's not Luka Doncic. It's Christian Wood.
Nice.
On the season, 17.5 points, 7.5 rebounds, and assists. Here's the thing that's really good, and his field goal percentage for his career is 52.2, but he's 57% from the field, and he's 43.2 from 3. The free throws are creeping up. If you look at the last 3 seasons, 63, 62.3, now close to 70, so that's good. But here's the impressive part. He's doing it off the bench and in only 25 minutes a game. And I think the biggest question we all like Christian Wood's talent, correct?
Yeah.
You see the talent. But he's always doing it on a bad team.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how it is. There's got to be somebody on a bad – the question is, can this guy be a productive basketball player on a good team? He's answering the call this year. Mm-hmm. He has been – Dallas' second best player this season. He's been fantastic, I think. He's been
the only
really
thing
good.
about Dallas is he's going to have to be the second best player, because who's it going to be? Spencer Dinwiddie? Because that team is garbage pieces around.
Exactly. I know
there's
that.
There's no other star but Luka.
I know that. But they're winning games, and he's a big, important piece on it, which is the question everybody had. Yeah. What are they now, 9-6? And they could easily right now be 12-3. They've blown like 3
first half
quarter
leads.
Exactly. Yeah. They've blown 3 leads of double figures in the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely can see it, as crazy as the West is this year. Golden State in disarray, looking better of late. Clay with a good performance last night. That was good to see. Kawhi in and out of the lineup.
Minnesota
I could see
struggling.
Dallas. Hey, Pete, your initial pick. I know you. Dallas could be in the top 3 this year. They really could
Memphis
be a top
will fall
3
down,
team.
I think, because of injuries.
And Michael Porter Jr. in that superstar role with Jokic and Murray out looked completely like he looked like a deer in headlights. He couldn't do anything.
Yeah, and I'll use that as you're talking about the standings. What about man? We all crap on Sacramento, but I got to give props to Mike Brown. I don't want to get into a whole thing of how great does Sacramento look, but Mike Brown really has this team playing well, compared to history. Whether it lasts, who knows?
Well, we got to be careful because I know he had LeBron, but he did do a good job when he was in Cleveland.
Mm-hmm. He
had LeBron and nobody. Well, I mean, you had his Gilgeous, you had some guy, Eric Snow, you had some shooters, but nobody looked at that team like, oh, this team is great.
Yeah, but
nobody saw those teams
as
6. They won. What did they have that year? Mike Brown, was it 2 60-win seasons in a row? Nobody looked at those teams as 60-win teams. When Mo Williams is your second best player, Mike Brown can coach.
He got him to an All-Star team that
year.
Yeah,
and he was set up for. Let's be honest, he was set up for failure in L.A.
Yeah,
he was.
Being realistic.
Yeah, he was.
He's getting to put his stamp on this team, and just the role guys are what's more impressive than anything else. Yes, De'Aaron Fox has been doing well, but the role guys are what's impressed me. But Yeah, it's 1 month into the season. We don't want to get too high, too low on teams, but right now, like once you get to that 20-game mark, you can start figuring teams out, and you're like you can get a good glimpse of, all right, this is where a team's going to go. So we got pretty much like another not quite a month to go, and we'll kind of know, all right, these teams are kind of destined to be in the trade market. These teams are going to tank, things like that. The question everybody has is what's happening with Golden State? Are they going to turn it around? Are the Lakers going to be able to get it, the playoffs, like that kind of stuff? But I think for me, one of the troubling signs is where's Miami going to go, because they don't look like they're going to be able to turn it around without a power forward. But we'll
maybe
see.
Jovic is the answer the rest of the season. I mean, you can't do any worse, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can. Do you guys have anything that you might that kind of looking at that maybe it's not too early to like panic over, but like something that you're monitoring that might be a little alarming over the next 3 weeks or so as we hit that 20-game mark? Any team that might?
It's like the team that could possibly like take it, obviously, other than Memphis. Go ahead, Mike. I see the smile on your face.
What's up, Mike?
I mean, I was just thinking of how messed up, how upside down the league is right now. It's a lot of teams we thought would be good are just nowhere to be seen. They're just invisible. There are some teams that have shown up and made their presence felt and really stand out, but others just disappear when the moment comes. And it's just like, where did they go? I don't see them. I don't know where they're at. Can't find them. It's
like those damn mosquito bites that you can never get rid of. Like,
you can never get rid of those mosquito bites, Yeah. But
I knew it was coming.
Yeah, but
I knew that was coming.
It's a lot of teams in trouble right now, and honestly, I just think guys are the mileage is catching up to people. Yeah. Golden State, they've been to 6 finals in 8 years? The mileage has caught up to Clay and Draymond. I know he didn't work out in the preseason and the postseason because he had a fear of injuring himself again, as he said on All the Smoke. But Clay isn't into form just yet, so I'll reserve some judgment. But yeah, he's coming back off 2 devastating injuries, and he's old. Draymond's limited scoring. Those bench guys aren't doing what they thought they would do.
The bench is where I'm most worried about.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan Poole's trying to do too much. Kuminga's attitude and lack of play and has just been abysmal. Like, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he's
up and down.
Yeah. Well, because he's not playing his role. He's not coming in. He's trying to do too much, and it's like
facilitating instead of just focusing.
Yeah, Simmons had mentioned something about Jordan Poole. Like, he's like in this role with what's going on. It's like, he knows he can do these things, but do I pull up for the 3 here? Do I dish it here? Do I go to the cup? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it feels like he's thinking too much instead of just, figuring the game out. And like, if it's not like you can see it in some guys when the game slows down for him. It feels like he's almost there, but he's overthinking. He can't just play his game, and I think that Draymond punch has something to do with it. I think he's in his head.
It's got to be tough. Jordan Poole is better than Klay Thompson at this point in their career. It's just a fact. If Klay Thompson's not making shots, he does nothing for your basketball team.
Yeah.
He won't go to the rim.
Right.
He can't defend really anymore.
Well, he did get a dunk the other night. He did get a dunk last night against the Knicks.
He did. Yeah. You know what I mean? If you're Jordan,
but yeah, he's not. Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're thinking, like right now, Klay should be coming. That should be my spot. So that's probably part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think they'll be fine. Ultimately, I do think they'll figure it out. You got DiVincenzo getting. He's back from injury. We'll see. He's a nice piece for them, and we'll see. Maybe Wiseman will come back ready to play, or they'll trade him and they'll get something they need for him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They're gonna. I think at this point he needs to change the scenery.
Like, Wiseman for OG Anunoby.
Nah, I don't. There ain't no way. The way OG Anunoby's been going off for the Raptors, like
another surprising guy, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, no, because he was doing it last season. He just didn't have the scoring role. But with Siakam out, like he's able to step up the scoring a little bit. And Scotty Barnes has struggled a little bit compared to last year. So that kind of helped things. But, yeah, 1 month into the season, that's our surprises. As always, please make sure if you're watching us on YouTube, you hit that like button, you hit that subscribe button. If you are already not subscribed, we are also on all streaming audio platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Anchor. On Apple Podcasts specifically and Spotify, if you could leave us a little written review, that would be great. Let us kind of know what you want to see, whether it's in the YouTube comments or on the audio streaming reviews. Let us know some topics maybe you want to see in the future. Make sure you're subscribed on all those too, by the way. Lastly, we do have an Instagram and a TikTok. We take ownership that we've got to develop that a little bit more, but we'll have more content there coming in smaller clip forms. So make sure you subscribe to those as well. Everything's under the Loop City handle. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We are Loop City, and we're out.